Murders, Mysteries, and Conspiracies with author Glenn P. Klinger III is presented by the Florida Pickleball Clothing Company. For all your pickleball clothing, go to floridapickleballclothingcompany.com. Now, with today's murders, mysteries, and conspiracies, here is author Glenn P. Klinger III.
Hey everybody, this is Glenn, and I want to welcome you to yet another installment of Murders, Mysteries, and Conspiracies. Now, if you're a returning listener, I want to thank you for doing that. If you are a first-time listener, I want to tell you that this is the place where we look at various events in history. I try and provide both sides of an event, provide all my references. You can follow along, listen, go out on your own, research the event yourself. And together, maybe we can solve a mystery. I'd love to see your feedback and hear from you if you do that. I'm a mystery writer. I have been since about 1993. I currently write the Rolling Justice and NTSB mystery series. Now, today we're talking about an interesting character that had an interesting life, but a very controversial death. And that is Harry Houdini. Now, Harry Houdini was a magician, an escape artist. He did a lot of different things in his life. Very interesting character. So I hope you'll sit back and enjoy this episode of Murders, Mysteries, and Conspiracies. Now, Houdini was born Eric Weiss on March 24th, 1874 in Budapest, Hungary. He was one of 7 kids born to a Jewish rabbi. And the rabbi moved his family to Appleton, Wisconsin, where Houdini claimed he was born. They later moved to New York when Houdini was 13, and he worked odd jobs before becoming a trapeze artist in the circus. He decided to become a magician. He wanted to be a card trick guy. So he says, hey, I need a stage name. But he called himself Harry Houdini, and he took the last name of French magician John Eugene Robert Houdin. He added an I to it for Houdini. And he took the first name of American magician Harry Keller, who he admired, and so he became Harry Houdini. When he was a teenager, he was coached by magician Joseph Wren at the Pastime Athletic Club, so he had some training. And he joined circus, took his magic act on the road. He appeared in tent acts with the strongman Emil Jarro. He performed in dime museums and sideshows, and even doubled as the wild man. At the circus, Houdini focused initially on just traditional card tricks, but he billed himself as the king of cards. This guy could market anything. It was amazing how he marketed himself over his career, and he was able to trade the talent that he had and turn it into a very, very lucrative career. In the early 1890s, Houdini started performing with his brother Dash. And the brothers Houdini performed at the Chicago World's Fair, 1893. It was there that he met his future wife, Beatrice Bess Rayner, who became his sidekick in the show for the remainder of his career. Now, the Houdinis worked together, performing various different events, and Bess worked as the stage assistant. Houdini got his big break in 1899 because he started doing handcuff tricks. He was better at that than he was the card tricks. And even though he continued to do the card tricks his entire career, the handcuff escapes were probably the best ones that he did. So he met his manager, Martin Beck, in St. Paul, Minnesota, and the guy was really impressed with his handcuff escapes. So he tried to book him on the vaudeville circuit, and he later arranged for him to tour Europe. Now, he did several days of unsuccessful interviews in London. Houdini's British agent, Harry Day, helped him get an interview with the manager of the Alhambra Theater. And he was introduced to William Melville and gave a demonstration of his escapes out of handcuffs at Scotland Yard. They said he foiled the police so remarkably that they booked him at the Alhambra Theater for 6 months. Now, his show was a big hit, and he immediately started commanding $300 a week, which in today's dollars is about $10,500. So that's a lot of money. But he still kept doing his card tricks and his illusions and his outdoor stunts. He named himself the Handcuff King. In each city that he went to, the police would try and restrain him with shackles and lock him in jail cells and challenge him to escape from places. They even got to the point where they were stripping him nude and searching him. They thought he had keys or something to pick the locks with. In Moscow, he was escaped from a Siberian transport van, prison van. So he did some crazy, crazy stuff. Now, when he returned to the United States in 1904, he decided he wanted to purchase a house in New York City. He spent $25,000. Now, in 1904, $25,000 is like $814,000 today. So that's a lot of money. It was a brownstone on West 113th Street. He started his own publication. He started in 1906. He started Conjurer's Monthly Magazine. It was just a 2-volume thing. It didn't last very long. He tried to chronicle his own adventures in it and his own view of magic. But I thought the ingenuity and the fact that he was trying to expand himself and market himself in other areas was just ingenious. He just was trying to get different revenue streams, different ways to continue to market himself and make himself more money. A lot of the stuff that he did, though, the handcuff escapes just started to take on a life of their own, and they became more and more dangerous. And some of the stuff was just downright comical. He would escape from anything. Nailed packaging crates, lowered into water, a riveted boiler. Uh, he even escaped from the belly of a whale. There was this whale washed up ashore in Boston, and I don't know how he escaped from it. He just crawled in and escaped. I don't know how that works. But brewers in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and other cities challenged him to escape from a barrel of beer. So he did. He escaped from that. So it's pretty interesting. But as his career went forward, you notice that his stunts had to become more and more dangerous. People just weren't willing to put out the money unless the stunt was more and more dangerous. And that's not uncommon for daredevils. You can think Evel Knievel. His stunts became more and more dangerous as his career went on because that's what he had to do to keep people's interest. He came out with a milk can escape where it was an original act of his. We was sealed inside an oversized uh, can of milk, and it was filled with water. He would escape from it behind a curtain, which was a pretty neat effect. He would proclaim that failure meant he would drown. So people got into that. They would show up to see if he made it out alive. And it became a regular part of his act for about 4 years. But people started stealing his work. They started stealing his act. So what he did is he came up with another act, and he said, I'll go ahead and patent this thing and get copyright protection on it. So that's what he did. And it was the Chinese water torture cell. Now, you've seen this. They put his leg in shackles and they cuff his hands and they wrap chains around him and then dunk him in a big tank of water. It was the Chinese water torture cell, and they would put him upside down and lower him into it. Audiences could clearly see Houdini, and they would lock the top of it and lock him in it. It was kind of a crazy, they called it Houdini upside down. And he did that so he could, like I said, get copyright protection and establish grounds for suing people, which he did several times when people would try and steal his work. He would escape from oversized boxes. Now, the most dangerous one that he ever did was the buried alive stunt, which they actually put him in a grave, 6-foot grave, and filled it full of dirt. He was cuffed in there and he had to get out. And that almost killed him. He did it in Santa Ana, California in 1950. It almost cost him his life. It was without a casket. And so he was in there with the weight of the earth on him and 6 feet deep. And he said it was just too much. He tried to dig his way out and he actually panicked. And once he broke through the surface, he just became unconscious trying to dig his way out. But he said the weight of the earth was just too much for him. He got into film career. A lot of people didn't know that he started showing his escapes on film because he wanted to promote his material. He came up with one in 1909. Houdini made a film called The Marvelous Exploits of the Famous Houdini in Paris. And it featured a little narrative, and then he would escape from different things, straitjackets, underwater handcuff escapes, those kind of things. Now, Houdini was actually offered the starring role as Captain Nemo in the silent version of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but the production never got off the ground. In 1918, he signed a contract with film producer B.A. Rolfe to star in a 15-part series, The Master of Mystery. And Mr. B.A. Rolfe Productions went out of business, but that led Houdini to sign with Lasky Corporations, aka Paramount Pictures, for whom he did 2 big pictures, The Grim Game in 1919 and Terror Island in 1920. The Grimm game was one of Houdini's best works, and they actually, Turner Classic Movies actually revived that thing. It was put on that flammable nitrate film and a very low survival rate. They thought it was lost forever, but they actually found a copy of it. It made it to the Houdini Museum in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and then it was restored completely by Turner Classic Movies, and it can be seen to the general public to this day. He actually started his own production company, Houdini Pictures Corporation, but it didn't really go anywhere. And he made a few little films with it. He tried to do a film development company to process new motion picture film, which was pretty revolutionary for the time, but they didn't find success either. So he gave up on the business in 1923 because he said the profits were too meager. Now, 1909, Houdini became fascinated with aviation, and I didn't even realize this. He purchased a French Voisin biplane for $5,000, which is the equivalent to about $157,000 today. And his whole thing was he wanted to become the first guy to fly in Australia. So he went down to Australia and did a few flights down there. May 18th, 1910, following some inclement weather for more than a month, he was able to get airborne in this plane, and he flew it around for 3.5 minutes at an altitude of 100 feet. And you got to understand, 1910, aviation hadn't been around that many years. So he's down there trying to do something that had only been around a few years. And he had a few more short flights in his plane. And after completing the Australia tour, Houdini vowed to take that plane and fly city to city. He wanted to leap from it handcuffed, but he never did get around to that. In the 1920s, Houdini got sympathetic to people that were being ripped off by these mediums and psychics who were talking to people from beyond the grave. So turns his energies towards debunking psychics and mediums and people that took advantage of the bereaved. And he wanted to do that. He would go in to seances in disguise with police officers and reporters. And he chronicled this in his book, A Magician Among the Spirits. He co-authored with C.M. Eddy, who never did get any credit for it. These activities did compromise his friendship with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Doyle was a firm believer in spiritualism during his later years, and he didn't give any credit to Houdini's disputing these people. The two men became so estranged that they became public antagonists, and Doyle came to view Houdini as a dangerous person. But it's often interesting because after Houdini passed away, his wife, Houdini had given his wife a code word or a code that if he was to try and contact her from the other side, then these spiritualists would give her that code word. And she went for various seances for 10 years on the anniversary of his death, which was Halloween in 1926, and she never did hear the code word. So even after his death, he was debunking these people. Now, Houdini died on Halloween night, 1926. But on October 22nd, 1926, he was sitting in his dressing room at Princess Theater in Montreal, and a bunch of college kids came in. And one of the students was Jocelyn Gordon Whitehead. And this man is kind of weird. I mean, he said that Whitehead asked Houdini if he believed in the miracles of the Bible and whether it was true that punches in the stomach did not hurt him. Houdini was reclining on a couch and said, "Look, I think my stomach could endure a lot." Because Houdini used to do it in his show. He'd have people come and punch him in the stomach. This guy just jumps on him and starts hammering on him. And it really did some damage to Houdini, and he started having problems. Shortly after that, he started having abdominal pain, started running a fever. He got to his show and was running a 104-degree fever, but he refused not to go on stage. He wanted to perform his whole show for his audience. And then he was rushed to the hospital, and they had to do an emergency appendectomy on him. They said that his appendix had been ruptured 2 days previous. In researching this, I found a nurse that had recorded in a diary that she had been in the operating room when they brought Houdini in, and that he was joking about having to have surgery. And not only was his appendix ruptured, but his pancreas was ruptured. Now, you can rupture somebody's pancreas by punching them. Like, this guy must have really, really hit him pretty hard. But they started to wonder if these spiritualists were poisoning him. For the last several times that he had eaten, his wife Bess and himself, they had gotten sick after they had eaten out together at various restaurants. And they were wondering if maybe he had been poisoned with arsenic, because arsenic can enlarge the pancreas and perhaps lead it to rupture. So Houdini's grandnephew tried to have Houdini's body exhumed to see if there was arsenic in his hair or bones to try and prove if he was murdered or not. This gentleman that punched him in the stomach ended up becoming a recluse and died in is buried in an unmarked grave. So he listed the cause of death as streptococcal peritonitis. He had an interesting life. The Houdini Museum in Scranton, Pennsylvania, is the only building in the world entirely dedicated to Houdini. That's what they claim. He has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame that was put there October 31st, 1975. And the Magic Castle in Los Angeles, don't know if it's still there, but it's a nightclub for magicians and magic enthusiasts, as well as a clubhouse for the Academy of Magical Arts, and it features Houdini seances performed by a magician. So there's also the House of Houdini. It's a museum and performance venue located in Budapest, Hungary, where he was born. So there you go. You can learn more about Houdini, find out what you think. Was he murdered? Did he die from a ruptured appendix? Did he die from being punched in the stomach? All those things we got trying to figure out. So look at it. Let me know your thoughts. I look forward to hearing from you. Again, this is Glenn. Thank you for checking in to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and Conspiracies. Till next time, thanks so much.